Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another PC port review. Today we're looking at Crimson Desert, and oh my, two good PC ports back to back. I can't believe it. We are playing this at native 1440p on a 7900 XT, 7700X CPU at ultra settings, no upscaling, all native. We are getting 85 to 86 FPS, sometimes even touching into the upper 90s. Literally everything is open in this game. Tons of NPCs. Optimal performance. If you're looking for something that performs well, this is going to be the ticket. For some reason, every game that doesn't use Unreal Engine 5 literally performs like a dream. Strange to see how that suddenly turns out to be the case across the gaming industry, and especially on PC. Now, I have messed around with some of the cinematic settings. The thing is, though, the visual aspect between ultra, high, and cinematic are very few and far between. The frame rate difference is a little bit higher though, but for me, I felt like ultra and high as a combination are going to be your best bet visually and performance-wise. Just look at this. The frame time graph is basically steady across the board. Even as we go deeper into the actual areas, we're only getting 79 FPS at native. Only 79 to 80 FPS at native resolution, even in the main first town, with a ton of NPCs everywhere, all kinds of things happening. And yes, ray tracing is in fact on at the moment too. So full ray tracing, native resolution, 80 FPS, no frame time issues, no CPU bottleneck whatsoever. Everything looks great. And talking about CPU bottlenecks, we can clearly see right here on the 7700X, things are in fact looking very good. 41% to 45%. The only one that is a problem is thread 16, hitting 63% on the 7700X. In terms of VRAM allocation, we're sitting at 8.7 gigs allocated and 6.12 gigs dedicated. So if you're on an 8GB card, you really shouldn't have a problem at all. Actual RAM usage, we have 16 gigs allocated and 3.1 gig dedicated. Again, if you only have 16 gigabytes of RAM, you're looking pretty good. We clearly do not have any issues whatsoever, even as we're going into the night cycle of the game as well, and with ray tracing on and everything else in between, with even actual NPCs while playing the game. Now, I didn't want to push too far in it as well, but even during combat, everything keeps steady and looks incredibly good. This is one of those few games on PC that clearly pushes the boundaries and shows you what could really be done when developers actually take their time to optimize the game. But let's keep going though. Let's push even further and see what we can actually do with this kind of setup. I wanted to test where the CPU bottleneck might be, so I turned on FSR 3.1 and set it to quality. Well, it turns out we went from 80 FPS to over 107 FPS at some points, even hitting the 110 mark as well. Clearly, this game knows exactly what it's doing. So even at quality mode on FSR upscaling, the game still looks great at ultra settings. And we're still getting really good CPU usage across all cores and threads. And even thread 16 calmed down quite a little bit. 60% usage down to 54, even the early 50s. And that frame rate in the 100s is exactly what I want to see, especially with upscaling on top of this. Honestly, incredibly impressed so far and really happy as well. And you can also see with Intel PresentMon, there is still no CPU bottleneck either with the GPU busy line. But let's go even further and see what else we can push on this too. So I said to myself, why not? Let's go all the way to ultra performance and see what we get. And even at that aspect, we are getting 140 FPS around that average. Yes, the game looks terrible at ultra performance, especially because of FSR and how it's handling 3.1. But if you really wanted to push the boundary, if you actually wanted to squeeze out every frame that you could at ultra settings on FSR 3.1, ultra performance, 125 to 140 FPS. We still have not hit a CPU bottleneck on a mid-high tier CPU like the 7700X, even though it is a generation behind on AMD's cycle. That is incredibly impressive and really goes to show what actual developers can do when they truly go through and optimize their game. The thing is, though, this game can run across a massive breadth of different types of hardware, and the only other concern that I have right now is the fact that it literally uses de novo DRM. So clearly there's more headroom that we can really have on this back end. If it didn't have de novo, I could see the frame rate being even better and the performance being even far more smooth because of that. And it is a bit of a concern. Because of de novo, it's not going to work on other types of hardware. And clearly, the biggest concern that I have with this is that even though this game scales incredibly well, it turns out that it's not going to function properly or even at all on Linux or the Steam Deck. Also, real quick, as a PSA, this game is not going to function on an Intel GPU at all, regardless of what it is. In fact, the developers have said if you have an Intel GPU to please refund the game, as they do not have any way of actually making the game properly function on that kind of hardware. So, Intel guys, sorry, you're going to have to wait on some kind of update or a patch for this to get fixed in the first place. But let's see what the Steam Deck version has to show and go from there. So on the Steam Deck, things get a little bit wacky. In fact, they get a little bit, let's say, not working at all. As you can clearly see, it is taking an incredibly long time to even load the logo for Crimson Desert on the Steam Deck itself. When I was doing this testing, I was getting around 1 to 4 FPS while playing this on the Steam Deck. And clearly, this is going to be a massive problem. What I'm guessing here is basically that the issue is going to be Proton or de novo or something getting in the way of actually providing the ability to play this game. After waiting for about 45 minutes to share the compilation to complete, things got really bad across the board. And even going through this logo and introductory screen, that's where things get even sketchier. As you can see, we do have some headroom still left over on the CPU side, even though the GPU is flushed, but we're getting single-digit frame rates, 5 FPS, 6 FPS. And the worst case about it is that it will crash you directly back to desktop, and this is not a good sign at all. Apparently, this is happening across the board with every single Linux user. If you're using any sort of other distro or any sort of other Proton layer, let me know in the comments section down below. But clearly, this is a massive concern because on Linux, even though it's being pushed quite hard because of Steam and everybody else, it is not functioning correctly, or basically at all. As you're going to see right now, it's going to crash me to the desktop even during this loading section. And actually, there is headroom left on the CPU to even function in the first place. I personally thought it was because some of the graphical settings were left over from the previous session that I had on my desktop PC. That wasn't the case at all. It just went right back to desktop every single time. And that is a really big concern. If you're only going to be playing on the Steam Deck, unfortunately, I would request a massive refund because clearly it's not going to work at this moment in time. It looks like Pearl Abyss has to go through and, in my opinion, fix these issues because it seems to be more of like a Proton compatibility layer or a DRM issue with de novo in the first place. And that could be exactly why this is happening. The problem, though, is this isn't the only time it's occurred. It's also happening on the ROG Ally X. Now, the ROG Ally X was definitely easier to get through in the very beginning. Shaders compiled pretty quickly. Things are working quite well. The problem, though, is even though the frame rate looks good and everything seems fine, there's still going to be concerns as well. But we did get farther than we got in the actual Steam Deck version. Check it out. Once the shaders were loaded and I pressed A, things were looking good. Frame rate is definitely better. We're sitting in the 60 FPS line in the main screen. The loading screen comes up. Things look promising, but it turns out it's only going to appear promising and not actually be promising. It looks like there are some other concerns on these handheld devices, either with driver support or with the way the game is designed or any sort of issue on that end. Now, I did do updates for my CPU and GPU and also for the actual BIOS for the ROG Ally X as well as the Steam Deck. The thing is, though, it's going to hit a hard stop pretty much right around here once your character loads into the game. Getting 41 to 40 FPS is exactly what I thought would be really promising, but the issue is it's going to hard lock once we go into that main area and start to load into the game itself, and that is going to be the biggest concern. This loop took way too long to get to where we needed it to be, and that wasn't fun at all. Check it out. Once that scene was loaded, my character gets up, ready to go into the actual world out of his meditative state. Things are looking pretty promising. 44 FPS, 64% GPU usage, 20% across all cores and threads for CPU, and this is where things took a dark turn. The moment the game tries to put you into the open world, nothing but a massive freeze across the board. This is going to be a massive problem, and I feel like it also falls in line with things like de novo as well. This could be, again, a major DRM issue. It could also be just a concern with the drivers on these handheld devices, or it could be any other major set of things. This game runs incredibly well, and I'm having a really fantastic time with it. I put in about 6 hours already, even while doing some testing and just playing the game itself. Had to put the actual idea of, hey, put the game down, buddy. You got a video to make before even doing it. The thing is, though, if you're trying to play this game on any other device except a semi-decent Windows PC, you're going to have a very difficult time. It scales incredibly well, it runs well, it's low energy, and it runs across a wide set of pieces of hardware. The problem is when it starts to go into other pieces besides either NVIDIA or AMD, that's where you're going to be having a big issue overall. Handheld devices simply don't work. That's really the concern that I've had with this for right now. Linux, apparently completely borked. ROG Ally X support, even on Windows, still doesn't work either. It's an incredibly big shame that a game optimized this well, and honestly, in my opinion, this much fun, I know, hot take, I actually really like the game, is really having these other kinds of concerns and not functioning correctly on any other kind of hardware. I think Pearl Abyss needs to go through and do a lot of work on this specifically to make sure as many people as possible get to play this game, especially when they've paid for it. And that truly is one of the biggest concerns of all. Adding de novo at the end of the day, right before the game's release, is not a good point of reference and really puts a knife in the back of a lot of users who wanted to buy this game first and foremost. Many people won't buy it simply because of de novo, and it could be the big reason why we're having all these issues with this game on other pieces of hardware, including Intel and the handheld devices. Hopefully, though, this kind of stuff gets ironed out, and when it does, it will be a great experience, hopefully on the handheld device. I might even make an update once Proton compatibility even works on this system, but for right now, personally, it's not where it needs to be on those specific kinds of pieces of hardware. If, however, though, you've got a pretty decent desktop, you're basically set to go. Regardless of your CPU and GPU combo, you should be honestly fine. Now, some other concerns as well, though. If you're running anything in terms of like a 9070 XT and you're trying to use ray regeneration, my suggestion is don't. It's going to actually impact you a lot worse, especially if you're on that newer RDNA 5 type of hardware. Also, as a quick aside, if you're on AMD and are having a difficult time and not getting the same performance, please be advised, I am using 26.2.2 drivers, not the 26.3.1. Apparently, there are some concerns with 26.3.1 that are causing performance issues on AMD cards, especially in the 90 series cards as well. So just be advised, do not go up to 26.3.1, stay on 26.2.2, and you get similar performance to what I'm having right here. But all in all, it is not a bad game, but it has some small concerns that I would love to see ironed out to have a better experience for basically everyone. This is one of those games that really is going to be, in my opinion, one of the top contenders for the game of the year. And if you enjoyed Dragon's Dogma and if you want a good performing game, this is going to be the one for you. If you don't like de novo, my suggestion is definitely wait until it is removed from this game, or of course, sail the seas if that's going to be the case for you once it gets cracked. And hopefully Pearl Abyss will also fix the issues on the handheld mode as well and provide a better user base for those handheld devices on top of that, and even Intel support for those people on Intel GPUs too. With all that being said, though, I want to hear what your experiences are with Crimson Desert, what kind of PC you're running with, how you're playing the game, and what experiences you're having as well. And if you're having any issues, help each other out in the comments section down below. Once again, thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you have a great one, and I'll see you guys next time.